Chris Baseford doesn't give an L1 about your plugins, and that's why he's worked with some of the most massive rock bands on the planet. Listen to him explain exactly how his process directly leads to results.
And I'm going to be talking less about the what's and a lot more about the whys, and then that's going to lead to the hows, because ultimately the plugin doesn't really matter that much. The frequency really doesn't matter that much. It's why you're doing something, and then everybody's going to have 10 different ways to answer that why. Try not to focus so much on like which plugins I'm using or the exact frequency I'm boosting. We're going to be talking a lot more about the why. And ultimately, at the end of this, there should be a lot more questions than there are answers. So I hope to provoke some thought and to make anybody who's watching this, once this is done, basically rethink everything they've done up to this point. And it might be coming to the conclusion that everything they've been doing up to this point is right and they're on the right track. Keep going. But I want this to provoke kind of like, why am I doing things a certain way? Why am I using that plugin? Why do I like that? Why is that a problem in every single mix I do? And if you can think about that why, I think ultimately you're going to be able to figure out how to solve it. That's kind of my thought process behind pretty much everything I do in life. And so I wanted to preface this with that, so that way people aren't like, what is this guy going on about?
Here's a direct example of his process in motion.
SSL channel on every single one. Why do you do that, Chris? Well, I already told you why. Because if it needs anything, it's really quick and easy to just, if I need to add some top end, boom, there's top end. Oh, by the way, just for somebody who's wondering, like, what just happened there? I've got a little like plugin controller here. It's basically like an SSL channel strip that matches up, so I can control on a knob, which is fucking awesome. So yeah, I'll just go through my channels, and if I need to roll some low end off, boom, like it's really fast. If I had to go and instantiate a plugin, here's what's going to happen for most people. Boomer track. It's got a big boom. You guys know what that is on the downbeats, right? If I'm like, man, that's got some way too much low end. I don't know. Is there such a thing as that on a boom track?
Hell no. But anyways, keep your fantasy going.
The boom track needs way more low end. What's going to happen for most people if they don't already have a channel strip set up is they're going to click on their plugin and they're going to think to themselves, man, what plugin should I put on the boomer track to give it?
I hear the Neve is good on bottom end, but it might be better.
I hear because somebody told me that, right?
Yes. I
actually haven't come to that determination on my own. Somebody told me the Neve's good. Who fucking cares? It's the boomer track. It needs some low end. Yes or no? But even just that thought process, that just pulled, like, if you have a meter of like energy or attention, like on a video game, and every time you make a decision, you pull a little like thing off of that meter, having to make that decision and having to do this process just pulled one little tick of energy out of your meter. Like, that's a waste. You don't want to pull that off. So most people, if they go, what EQ to use? I've got like 1,000 fucking EQs here. No, boomer needs more low end. Done. Go.
That's what frequency did you use?
Doesn't matter, because like I said, what's the decision-making tree? Low end, yes or no? Open the plugin, yes. Did that cause more problems? Is it the right frequency? Not the right frequency. Okay, now I go to the frequency. Who cares? What frequency did I end up on? I don't know. I fixed the problem. Move on. Okay,
I love what you think.
I better take that low end off, or I'm going to blow up everybody's speakers.
How long are you taking to address problems while mixing? Are you getting stuck picking plugins? Are you losing yourself while picking frequencies? What if you just can't work as fast as Chris does? Well, you can, and you're gonna see results immediately with these simple tips.
I'm going to solo the kick drum really quickly here so you can kind of get an idea of what's what. Here's the live kick drum. Right? So it's a good sounding kick drum, but it's obviously not like the cartoon kick drum that everybody wants from Nickelback, and basically every time I go to mix a big rock song, what I'm trying to go for. So that's when I'll start bringing in the samples, and I'll turn on something like this, where I'll show you kind of how we build up into what we're building into. So it says here, kick samp CB1, kick samp CB2, kick samp CB3, kick samp CB4. Now, is that a sample that I've been using for 20 years? No. This is basically from the production session where I had my programmed drums. This is 2 kick samples that I basically just printed of what we were hearing from the program stuff, mixed the way we had been hearing it while the song was being produced. And I did 2 of them, so I had a little bit of control over each one. So I'll just give you a taste of like what each one of these is. So lots of attack, right? Kind of pokey, kind of slappy. And then here's the moneymaker right here.
That is a Nickelback kick.
Yeah, but that's not one kick sample. I mean, it is one kick sample now, but that was made up of probably 3 or 4 kick samples that were treated and processed specifically for this song while we were producing this song. Like, it kind of evolved into that. And then when it's time to move on from program drums, I just print that kick sounding the way we've been listening to it. And now that's a new kick sample. So if somebody said to me, give me the Nickelback sample, I'd be like, which one? Every song, it's different. Literally every song, it's different. Now, when I say it's different, yes, do I use similar ones in every song? Yes, but the balances are different. This might have been EQ'd differently. It might have been, one might be compressed. Obviously, this song, at some point in time, I was like, I'm missing a little bit of slap. And I wanted to leave that as is, and I wanted to fill in that frequency. Right? So during the production process, at some point, I was like, I'm missing a little bit of slap on the kick. I added a slappy sample into it, and then that became what we were listening to. And then the other thing I like to do, and you'll see a couple other samples loaded in here, but I like big, like ambient samples that are like super long. This song, the kick, I actually needed to shorten it down a little bit, but I'll always at least load a few big roomy samples in, so that way I have the option of lengthening kicks and snares and toms, and I'll just kind of give you a taste of what that sounds like. So it sounds a little bit, and these are samples that me and Andrew Cruz actually recorded and produced these that you'll probably be hearing about. In solo, they sound funny, but when you mix them in, like you can kind of hear. Right? So it kind of gives this realistic space. Now the kick drum's not super dry, and I mean, it still sounds sampled, but it gives it a realism, and it gives it a width, and it gives it a length that I think a lot of people don't really think about when they're thinking about drums or drum samples. And for me, I focus a lot, like just sonically, one of the things I gravitate towards a lot is I like drums to sustain the length of the beat until the next thing comes in. So if it's a snare, like I almost want the snare to sustain until the next snare or until the next kick, or if it's 4 on the floor, I want it to sustain to the next kick drum. So having options to make things longer, and then you always have the option of chopping things down or gating them down, but that's always a big thing for me. But basically, like, I just wanted to kind of give some insight as to how the samples get built, because it's not me just using the same 3 samples every time, and it's not a ton of different layers by the time I get to this point. Those decisions have already been made. Those balances have evolved over the course of the production to fit the song. So this balance, that kick sample CB4 might not work in the next Nickelback song. It might need to be something different. And I think that's something, again, you got to have intent, and you got to use your ears, and you got to listen to see what works and what doesn't work. Once that was balanced out, I print that down, and you end up with, here's the blend of all the kicks together. So there is dry kick in there. Obviously, the sample is very loud. That's what we do. Right? I'll pop open some of the plugins here. I mean, this goes back to a little bit of kind of what I was saying from the beginning of it. Like my decision making when I'm doing stuff like this is very kind of go. I know a lot of you right now are looking at, they're like, oh, how much top end is he boosting? Oh, what's the frequency at? It's like, I don't think I touched that frequency. I think I added more top end, and 8K just happens to be the default. I'm like, yeah, I needed some top end, so I added top end. Done. Moving on. I added some bottom end. Like it's actually not precious at all. And it's very broad stroke stuff.
I absolutely love how you think, though. It's so important.
And let me just like clarify something so that everybody knows. This is something I have been working on for years. I still have to work on this. I still find myself doing what everybody else does. And if I have to put a plug-in on something, I'm like, man, I really compressor. Which compressor should I use? Which 1176 compressor should I use?
I heard the Bomb Factory is the best.
It is the best. Yeah, it is the best. We knew that a long time ago, right? No.
But the Purple 76, though, I mean.
But again, like I have to work very hard mentally. This is something that doesn't come naturally. And I know it's not natural for a lot of people. Like we want that magic thing. We want something to do the heavy lifting for us. And we hope that if we pick the right plug-in, that it's just going to like instantly do what we wanted it to do. Sometimes it does. Most of the time it doesn't. Ultimately, I try to take as much of that out of the mix process as possible by thinking about that ahead of time and then just setting it up. And I found that this particular channel strip makes it the easiest for me to do exactly what I just showed you. Need more bottom end? Yes. Boom. Did I cause any other problems? Well, yeah, now it's the wrong frequency. It's too low. I need to go a little higher. Okay, boom. Did that fix the problem? Yes. Moving on. Done. Right. And I picked this EQ for a variety of reasons. For somebody else, it might be Fab Filter. Maybe Fab Filter lets them make that that decision making really quick and lets them do the move really fast, actually physically, virtually, obviously. But pick your tools to help you. Don't pick your tools just on a whim or that work against you. Pick what's going to help you get through that process as quickly and efficiently as possible, because that's going to let you focus on the good shit.
Even the best of the best aren't perfect. But Chris spent his valuable time developing processes to continue to improve himself and his work. Here's one of his most valuable pieces of advice that you can apply right now.
I think focusing a lot of the detail work at the beginning, prepping your tracks, prepping your workflow, always thinking about it, always improving it, try stuff. Then when you're mixing, just mix. And then when you get to the end, that's when, again, you need to be objective. You need to be clear. You need to be worrying about the details to finish it off. That shouldn't be when you obliterate it because you're not super pumped with maybe what the results were because you were focusing on the wrong things.
Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Ryan Wolanski from URM Academy, and I hope you're able to take this advice and really make some awesome music. I would absolutely recommend checking out the complete live stream on nailthemix.com. Chris is absolutely firing on all cylinders the entire time, and it's just knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb. And if you want to learn more about the full production process, we finally announced the massive How It's Done course with Jens Bogren and Isan, where you get to see the entire process from pre-production to mastering, from the genius behind some of Dimmu Borgir, Opeth, and Amon Amarth's greatest hits. Before I go, I'll leave you with this last bit of philosophy from Chris. See you next time, and happy producing.
If 100 people got speeding tickets while this song was playing, like my job as a producer is fulfilled. Like that's the goal.
That's a great quote.
Yeah. So like that, everything we were doing was to serve that purpose. I think of speeding tickets because I always find myself driving like way too fast to songs like this. If you're driving in your car and you're doing the speed limit and this song's playing, it's like the production's not done, the mix isn't right, like something's not happening. So everything about the mix is leading up to that. It's trying to fulfill that. It's serving that purpose. And so if the kick drum, if the low end pumping serves that purpose, so be it. If it's too much and now the listener is like, ooh, something's weird in the low end. I don't want them thinking that. I want them thinking about like speeding. I want them thinking about like the cops chasing them. I don't want them thinking about the low end pumping. So you kind of have to do all this stuff and make the compromises of, yeah, I want lots of low end, but I don't want it so big that it's obnoxious and annoying. I don't want somebody's ear pulled to that. That's not what I want people focused on. I can't remember who told me this, but it was the best quote ever. How do you get a better snare sound? And somebody's like, how do you get a better snare sound? Write a better song. And it's like, you shouldn't be listening to the snare. You should be listening to the song. And it's like, I don't necessarily agree with that because obviously we want to make the snare sound awesome, but it's kind of like that with, you're talking about like the low end pumping. Does it pump the low end? Well, if you're hearing it, then it's too much. If that's pulling your focus, it's too much. And then dial it back. And that's just a compromise. And you got to either figure out how to get the kick bigger a different way or move on.